Beyond Burnout, how high performance does not have to break you, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Pro Voice. My name is JT O'Donnell. I'm the founder and CEO of Work It Daily and the host of the show. And I am so excited to have three of our Pro Voice experts here with us today. Anna Smith, she's a global leadership strategist and digital well-being expert. I've got Ron Stokes, he's an agile strategist and leadership coach. And I've got James Ennis, he's a technical sales leader and cybersecurity solutions expert. Welcome back to the show, my friends. How are we all doing today?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Good. We're ready to rock and roll. All right. Well, let's make sure everybody's mics are working correctly. We're going to start off with a little mic check. What I'm looking for each of you in 20 words or less, tell me about a time when you personally realized that you were addressing a burnout experience. You were kind of hitting that max edge, and how did you deal with it? Let's start with you, Anna.
I'd say, JT, there was a point in my career when I thought I was doing everything right, long hours, high performance, always available, and yet I felt completely exhausted all the time. That's the very definition of burnout, right? Chronic workplace stress, etc. And the harder I pushed, the worse it got. It was until I started to apply neuroscience that everything changed for me. I want to make sure and say burnout is not a sign of weakness, guys. It's a sign that we've just forgotten why we started in the first place.
I love that. I could not agree more. Quick story, my burnout moment. I was managing a huge $35 million division of a company. I remember finding the sticky note on my desk from my assistant saying, "Call your mom, it's urgent." And it was dated a week old.
Oh.
Right? There are those moments we all remember where we're like, this isn't right. This isn't right, right? So I totally agree with you on that. Ron, let's jump to you. Tell us your story.
Yeah, thanks, JT. This is such an important topic to talk about, and I'm so glad we have a chance to address it today. I mean, in my experience, burnout is a silent killer of team performance, and it happens so subtly and yet so suddenly at the same time. In some agile frameworks, it can sneak in disguise that in terms that we use like velocity or commitment or just all people pleasing, right? I believe the only way, there's only one way to combat it, and that is to just say no. If I can steal a saying from the 80s, although in a slightly different context. However, no is one of the hardest words to say, and quite frankly, to hear, but one of the most important to convey when preventing burnout. My burnout moment came just recently, right when I was laid off. And I didn't realize I was burnt out until I didn't have a job to go to. So, that's really when it hit home for me.
First of all, I love that honesty. And as a career coach, I would say 99% of people that deal with a layoff find that out in that moment. And the good news is when they land on the other side, they say, it's probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. At the time, it didn't feel that way. But I think you go through that and it really helps you recalibrate, which is wonderful. So thank you for that. It's amazing. James, your story.
So I worked for a small company. I was managing both sales and product. Product also includes managing those relationships. And what was happening was, I handled sales, I handled product, but I wasn't responsible for our technical staff. And I was pushing to start sending them to community colleges where you get certifications and basic computer skills, offer to pay for them. And there was no interest in that. So I think where my breaking moment hit was when I was outside at a customer site and the tech that was assigned couldn't finish the actual configuration of the call center we were deploying. And I had to do it. So I'm sitting there in a suit and tie and a shirt, till late at night, and I got it done. And that's when I realized that I'm burned out and this isn't going to work. So what I ended up doing is, I was there a little over 15 years. I ended up leaving the company because I didn't see a way to stop that from continually happening, week after week. So, yeah.
That is another huge example that I see. So people get to that burnout level. And if it's not a layoff situation, it's a eye up and quit. And then what, right? Like you literally have to recover first, and then you have to go explain why you did that, right? And there's another thing that I hope we get into at some point today, which is managers and leaders like questioning why somebody needed to recalibrate after burnout. Like, it blows my mind that we don't understand what an epidemic this is across the board. So I love that you shared that story. All right, clearly the microphones are working well. We are going to move into Signal Boost. And this is an opportunity for each of you to share, whether it's a book, a thought out idea, and a strategy, something that you want to shine the light on with respect to this concept today, because it's, again, probably one of the most important episodes we've done so far in terms of helping people understand. So Ron, let's start with you.
I think I'm going to stay on the saying no that I mentioned earlier, right? One of the keys that I believe to saying no is having a solid team leader partnership. There's a variety of job titles, but I'm referring to in Agile, right? The Scrum Master and the product owner. They act as both gatekeepers and pacemakers, or peacemakers, if you will, of the work that the team sees. I mean, their collaboration and partnership is vital. And with those two on the same page, it leads to ruthless backlog hygiene that helps keep a sustainable pace. It leads to empowered teammates or team members that can make on-the-spot decisions without a committee. Automating the redundant. This is where AI comes in. And probably the most important out of all of them is celebrating wins, no matter how small, right? I believe that when the team feels important and in control, they'll deliver faster and, quite frankly, sleep better.
And sleep is a very important part of not being burnt out, isn't it now? So very good point. I love it.
I'll get into some of that later. Yep.
Yeah, you better believe it. Yeah. James, what do you think?
So, I always focus on, and it's a simple concept, trying to provide a positive experience for the customer. And to do that, it's just not yourself, but it's the team you work, where you have to work with them to make sure that they have the tools they need to do their job, and you can elevate them as time progresses. And so I accepted a position at AT&T. It was our largest account in our market segment. It was doing $17 million a year in business with us. I was the technical account manager, and they were based in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. But what I also started doing is I always had these order tools. I could go in and place an order for a circuit, and you could basically do everything without having to talk to a person. But I remember they were putting pressure on me because they needed a circuit up and running in Mumbai, India as quickly as possible. So I entered my data into the tool. I got the results of the tool, but they were more concerned with the operational aspect as to how fast I could get it done. So I actually called a person in Croatia. That's where our international team was at. And I said, hey, I'm looking at these quotes. Which one of these, based on your experience, what you're seeing day to day, can I get installed the fastest? So she pulled it up. She reviewed it with me. So, well, this one's not the least expensive, but this is the one that I'm confident will get installed the quickest. So I reviewed that with the decision maker in Cedar Rapids. Said, okay, here's your choices for the end connection circuit we need in India, and here's the prices. But this is one I was told that if you want it in the fastest, this is the one that'll work. And we went ahead with it, and we got it in on time. So, that was developing relationships within the company where I could get reliable information instead of just being a keyboard pusher where, I'm entering orders and I'm taking what I get back. And that customer ended up being very successful with us for quite a few years. So.
Yeah, my takeaway there is high performers, if you try to be the solo superstar, it's not going to work, right?
No,
that you have to develop those relationships internally in order to scale yourself, which is, so amazing. You can't have all the knowledge, you can't have all of the information, but the relationships can extend your brain power. It's definitely how I took that story, which I thought was amazing. Anna, let's jump to you.
I greatly appreciate what both Ron and James have brought to the table, because for me, as I think about the most powerful tool, is attention management. And to Ron's point about saying no, and even though it's very difficult to do, it's certainly an avenue to keep us very, very focused. And certainly, like James was describing, building relationships, it's also another way to prioritize attention. So most leaders think success is really about doing more, right? But the truth is really about focusing on less with intention. Let's not forget that attention is very scarce, and we only have a certain amount. It's a scarce resource. So in order to protect our attention, we need to be very deliberate and act with a lot of intention, as I've mentioned before, because with every distraction, every unnecessary meetings, right? All these back-to-backs, every notification that we have, that's like a withdrawal from our attention bank accounts. And when we, on the contrary, guard our attention, we're creating really space to focus on what truly matters. And it's not about doing less, it's about doing the right things with the right clarity and the right energy.
Okay, so we always talk about building t-shirts and swag for this show based on some of the nuggets that people drop. I think we just got the first one of the day from Anna. Attention is a scarce resource. And I think I could say, don't drain my attention bank. I like both of those as reminders to people. I love that you're talking about less with attention instead of trying to do more. That is a huge mental shift, which I think is so important. I think we're going to talk a lot more about that. This is my guess based on the three of you, because when we come back from our sponsor break, we're going to get into work it or waste it, where we found out whether or not these experts think we should double down on hustle culture or let it go. This is an executive wake-up call. If you're a professional that's feeling overlooked and underutilized and quite frankly invisible, listen up, this one's for you. These days, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. You need visibility in order to attract the best opportunities. So if you feel like you've been stuck in the executive wasteland, you need to start using your Pro Voice. Your Pro Voice is a modern form of personal branding, and it's how you make sure that you get the best opportunities, raises and promotions, fractional work, and any other kind of opportunity that you're looking for in your latter half of your career. Executives today need to stand out. And if you don't understand how to do that with your Pro Voice, you are not going to get the respect and the opportunities you want and deserve. If you're interested in working directly with me and my team, you can do that with our Pro Voice platform. And right now, because you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to give you a discount. Pro Voice 50 will get you $50 a month off the monthly membership. Cancel at any time. And as a bonus, use the Pro Voice 50 and you will get a 30-minute one-on-one call with me to kick off your Pro Voice. And that is a $399 value. So what are you waiting for? It's time to use your Pro Voice to get the respect that you want and deserve, but more importantly, get the opportunities that you need. Sign up today at workitdaily.com, use Pro Voice 50, and I'll see you there. All right, welcome back. It's time for Work It or Waste It. Folks, I want to hear from you. Hustle culture has been big, particularly in the U.S. society where we are. High performers were rewarded for doing more and hustle, hustle, hustle. Is it still a thing? Do we still need it? If we do, what is the new definition in your mind of high performing without it having to burn out? I'd love to get your takes. Let's start with James. James, what are your thoughts on that?
Trying to prevent burnout from your sales teams is critical. And when I say sales teams, it's not necessarily that I'm managing individuals on a team. And let me give you an example. So one of the roles I had at AT&T was what was called an application sales executive. And I had a product set based on cloud voice products. So the people that I'm actually selling to was roughly 110 sales reps located across Illinois and Wisconsin. And what I was running into is the first year of that role, we had one product we were selling, and we had a defined chain of custody. So we had 12 salespeople, we had a vice president, we had a VP of the organization. We had everything in place to support our customers, which were those sales reps. Well, what happened is the organization got restructured, and I was put on, and my other 11 peers were put on a team where we were working with sales engineers. So we had no commonality. So what was happening is we also took on a new product. And the way the product was sold to us and the salespeople was, it's so easy that your customers can install it on their own. We'll give them a support person, an implementation advisor that can advise them how to do it. So what I was finding out is approximately 1/3 of the customers that we were selling a solution to, there's no way they could get it implemented on their own. So 3 or 4 months into this, I'm working with sales reps who are getting back to me like, hey, my customer's been getting billed for 4 months and they still can't use this. So, I'm looking at it from a perspective is, yes, we have the end user customer, but these 110 or so sales reps, these are all my customers and I need to fix this. Otherwise, they're not going to sell my product and my service. So what I did is, since I didn't have that chain anymore of a sales manager or a vice president, I looked up the product manager for that product. So I reached out to her. We came up with 2 offers. One, we would just do the configuration for them remotely, program it up, or 2, if they wanted, we would send out a technician for a fee and handle this. So basically what I did is I created a solution that we were able to implement where, my peers were happy, the sellers that we were supporting were happy, and it also drove revenues because the customers that signed up for it, on the average, the customers that bought professional services with the engagement increased reportable sales revenue by about 75% per sale. So it's one of those rare scenarios where it was a win-win for everyone involved. So there you go.
So my takeaway from that is when it comes to hustle culture, work smarter, not harder.
Yes, yes.
Right. Got it. Anna, what about you?
These may be a shocker for some people out there. I don't know. But hustle culture is one of the fastest roads to burnout. And I think it's probably a red thread amongst the different comments that we've been sharing. And again, by definition, burnout is chronic stress, which is unmanaged. And it leads to exhaustion, it leads to cynicism, and it leads to loss of effectiveness at work. When I work with my clients, I call this area the zero state. And I basically, to paint it, is you look successful on the outside, right? You're very successful, you're doing very well, you're very busy. Busyness, of course, is a great badge of honor. But inside, you're drained and you're questioning everything every single day. So let's not forget that real career growth comes from moving from that zero state that I was mentioning, I call it in my framework, to a hero state where you really have clarity, you have balance, and there's an intentional energy across which really fuels your results. And one last point, let's not forget about us as humans and how we operate. Neuroscience shows that, of course, when we operate from exhaustion, our prefrontal cortex, which manages all of our decision making and our creativity, of course, is shut down. So hustle is noise, people. Intention is what really scales.
Anna, first of all, I love everything you produce in this area because I know you do a lot of executive coaching on this. And I think what you described to me as you were saying it was people are so busy working in their jobs, they're not taking a step back and working on themselves as a professional. And that's where that disconnect and that burnout comes from. And I love that you are a huge advocate for let's stop this word hustle. Let's not do it. Because I think there are still some companies out there that want to bring it back based on what I'm seeing. And I think they look at the current market at the time we're recording this and they think, okay, if people want to work for me, if they want to be lucky enough to have a job in a bad economy, I can make them hustle again. And I'm just excited for you to be talking about that at the executive level, because there are a lot of people going through the motions out there right now and at that level and really don't have it all put together on the inside. So thank you for saying that. All right, let's jump over to you, Ron, because Ron, Agile, in the space that you work in, like the intensity is just always on. I'm sorry, I just feel like that's the nature of it. So what's your take on all this?
Well, so Anna, you stole my thunder, and I don't know how to follow that. So JT, in the future, don't let me follow Anna in anything, please.
She is rough to follow, but I know you personally. You can handle this.
Yeah. So I refer to it, Anna, as the Facebook syndrome, right? Everyone on Facebook is happy-go-lucky, but they're not showing the bad side. So that's how I kind of summarize it in my mind. But from a hustle culture and that always on, right? I agree with you that, it's definitely limiting professional success. Speed without burnout is an art form. And we all know that working harder doesn't always mean that we're going to be working better. But it takes a conscious decision and diligence to work to remove the friction, to sharpen the focus, and let the right work flow. Always being on the go will just quicken burnout. Just reiterating what you said, Anna, right? In my words, there has to be a conscious effort to build in rest and recovery, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Allow for breaks and time off to unplug and recharge. Humans aren't built to function at wire speed or at AI levels.
Beautifully said, and it's funny because I think we know it. And yet it's amazing to me how much it kind of escapes getting done, right? Or time passes and then we still find ourselves in these patterns. So I'm excited to hear from each of you in this next segment called In My Industry. What are you specifically doing? Like what's something specifically that's happening within your industry that you're seeing so that people can manage and mitigate this burnout and still stay as a high performer? Anna, I'm going to pick on you first.
This is such an important question, and thank you for bringing it to the table, JT. And I'm going to build on what Ron, very, very exactly shared. And I think for decades, leadership has just been about control, right? Control, 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 and how much can you squeeze out of people and processes. But certainly the leaders of tomorrow should be asking a different question, and that is, how can I create the conditions where people thrive, right? Ron just, prepared that stage for me. And I think in coaching, that means moving from these productivity hacks and being busy and trying to do everything to really more of a neuroscience-based leadership or understanding more our humanness. And very specifically, in my case, what I have identified as such is mindset. In my particular business, I call it mindset intelligence. And it's really at the center of this shift, because when leaders really understand the why behind their people, behind their energy, their purpose, they really stop creating these burnout factories and start building cultures of sustainable performance, right? I mean, simply put, mindset intelligence is learning to lead your mind so your mind doesn't lead you.
I love that you're talking about this. I mean, how do you stay innovative? How do you stay creative? You can't if you're burnt out. You can't. You keep using this term sustainable teams and the human aspect. I brought this up on another show, but the CEO of Salesforce recently was talking about how he was able to eliminate or cut, I think it was 4,000 or 5,000 heads, not humans, heads. And I'm sure he didn't mean it that way in that moment, but I think the fact that talks very much about how he saw that, right? We're seeing humans as expensive and unpredictable, and AI is more efficient and affordable. And yet we know we're going to need people. We know we're going to need humans, like you're saying, to do this. But we've got to give them the ability and the framework and the environment to, again, be creative, be innovative, and not burn out. So I love what you said there. Let's jump over to you, Ron. What's happening in your world?
So I think for this segment, I'd like to go back to your comment about Agile and always being on. I think in the Agile space, I would argue that avoiding burnout is implicitly part and parcel of the whole Agile mindset. But because it's not directly stated or documented in any of the values and principles, it can quickly and easily go by the wayside, in favor of succumbing to the tyranny of the urgent, right? Or agreeing when stakeholders say, hey, can we just squeeze this in? Back to the tyranny of the urgent. This is another quick read that I can't recommend enough, right? It does have a biblical context, but I think it helps position what is really important versus what seemingly is urgent at the time or right now.
I love that phrase. So it's a book, Tyranny of the Urgent?
It's a pamphlet. It's like maybe a 60, 70 page pamphlet by Charles Hummel.
Yeah, but that framework, that statement could make another great t-shirt, maybe some wall art. I'm feeling some swag with that one. I totally am. That's awesome. All right, James, what about your space? What's happening there?
The biggest thing I'm seeing in technology sales is this drive to do two things. One, to increase the size of your customer base and increase revenues. And that's very hard to do. And the reason I say that, because if you're in IT or cybersecurity, the last company I managed in Southeast Wisconsin, without exaggeration, there was probably 150 companies that identified in some area of IT services or IT support. So how do you separate yourself? So one of the first things you have to do is, we'd like to talk about automation, ways you can automate the sales experience, but sending out 10,000 emails a week isn't going to cut it anymore. And I was on a LinkedIn sponsored event the other day, and they interviewed Mark Cuban, and it was fascinating. And he said two things that I always remembered. This goes back decades. If you want to increase sales activity, you have to get out in front of prospects. And what he was referring to is that whether you're alone or you're building a sales team, you've got to sign up and participate regularly in civic events. When I say civic events, Chamber of Commerce, business organizations. And the idea is when you show up at these organizations, you might not get to meet the president or vice president of a company that you're targeting, but maybe you get to meet a salesperson. And that salesperson if you build that relationship with the salesperson, that can be the best way for you to grow your business. So years ago, I was given a rather unique offer to leave AT&T to manage an AT&T solutions provider, which I did for many years. And it was a very exciting opportunity. But I wanted to do more than just work on that AT&T relationship. I wanted to separate us from all the other IT companies that were out there. So what I did is I built a practice around the idea that before everything was in the cloud, number one concern of a customer, if you had an email server on site, you had a web server on site, what happens if my internet connection goes out? You're basically shutting down the business. So what I did is a couple things. I forged a partnership with a company called Fat Pipe out of Salt Lake City, Utah. And before you had this buzzword SD-WAN, they had a solution that was called router clustering, which meant that you could have multiple internet connections coming into a customer's building. And if one failed, it would re-advertise the surviving IP address of the circuit that was still operational so they could still get their inbound email and their inbound web traffic. So that was important.
All right. So we need another quick sponsor break. But when we come back, it's going to be time for Power Pitch, where each of these folks is going to give us their personal philosophy on how they are avoiding burnout and staying highly productive. Stay tuned.
Visibility is everything in today's world, but getting noticed, that's tougher than ever. AI is making it easy for you to apply, to post, to connect, but it's also flooding the market with noise. Recruiters, potential clients, decision makers, they're swamped. They can't meet with everyone. And so many great professionals are getting overlooked every single day. That's why creating a strong professional brand is so important. But you might be thinking, I don't know where to begin. I don't know what content will work best. I don't even have the time to figure this all out. That's where McCoy comes in. You bring your experience and your goals, and McCoy AI will turn them into clear, compelling messages that make people pay attention. It helps you find the words, the proof, the stories that show your value. In minutes, you'll have short, powerful content for your McCoy Reel, your evidence on video backed by real results. It's designed to grab attention fast and to leave the right impression. You'll know that people are watching, and you'll know that your message is landing. All in one simple link, easy to share, easy to open, impossible to ignore. No guessing, no blank page, no wasting time, just a smarter, faster way for you to show your value. McCoy is free, but with McCoy Pro, you can create targeted reels for specific roles, clients, and audiences. Build your presence, grow your influence, land that next big opportunity. McCoy helps people get you in seconds. Download today from the App Store and Google Play.
All right, welcome back. So folks, we're going to dive in right now. I need your personal philosophy. Quick, short, impactful. What's the one thing you're doing right now to ensure that you don't hit burnout stage and that you still maintain as a very high performer? Anna, I'm going to start with you.
Whether you are looking for a job, you're considering changing your job, you want to go from corporate America into becoming an entrepreneur, it doesn't really matter, or vice versa, it really doesn't matter. My invitation with the philosophy is this: success is really not about intensity, it's really about intention. Remember that burnout is what happens when stress is unmanaged and it leaves us exhausted and ineffective. So remember this: the future really belongs to those who create meaning for themselves and not just metrics.
Love it. Very, very good. Ron, what's your take? What are you doing right now?
I'll try to be succinct and concise here, but I'd say build systems and spaces that support people, not processes that break them. Agile frameworks create sustainable delivery cycles that protect the team's well-being while exceeding stakeholder expectations.
Fantastic. And what about you, James? What's your power punch when it comes to avoiding burnout?
If you want to stay relevant so you don't get burnout, you have to constantly be doing research and constantly elevating your own personal skill sets. And I'm going to give you a funny one that is so relevant. So as you know, I'm actively posting videos now, and there's a partner we have called Subs where they'll do a showcase where they'll actually put one of your videos in a showcase. So they want you to include a thumbnail with the video. And I thought, I'm not real good artistically, but I talked to our inside rep. What I did is I created a thumbnail using ChatGPT, and it was like a little animated thumbnail. And I was really quite proud of myself because I have no artistic ability. But here I did some research, I learned a new skill, and now for something as incidental as being able to post thumbnails with video, now I've got it. I'm happy.
I love it. So avoid the burnout by learning the skills so you don't stress out. Fantastic. Yeah. All right. We're at mic drop moment. This is your chance, my experts, to really leave today's audience with a lasting impact. I want you to give them the one powerful piece of advice that you want them to take away from today's session. And I'm going to start with you, Ron.
I'd say develop and hone the skill of saying no, but in a way that's professional, sympathetic, and respectful. You know, NO can be interpreted in so many ways. You can say, not right now, or I've already committed to X, or I prioritize Y. That will take up all my capacity right now. You don't necessarily have to say no directly.
I love that. I think that for you to point out, it doesn't have to be the word, but we can get the intention across is huge. Excellent job. I think the mic was very well dropped there. James, let's jump to you. What's the power piece of advice here?
I think the most important piece of advice is if you're dealing with customers, if you're looking to deliver a positive end user experience for that customer. So regardless what product or service you're selling, they're happy with you and the performance of what you're selling. But to do that, you really have to build that support within your team, and you have to elevate your team every chance you get. If you don't build that team up, your ability as an individual to deliver a high-level service will be severely compromised, to say the least. So,
relationships matter. Excellent. And Anna, let's end this with you.
Let's remember that burnout is not a badge of honor. It's a warning sign. If you make one change today, start here. Protect your attention as fiercely as you protect your calendar. Remember that burnout is unmanaged stress in the workplace, but so much of that stress comes from giving away our focus to distractions and demands that don't truly matter. Thank you.
I love it. Folks, listen, all of these experts are available to you. You can have each and every one of them in your back pocket, thanks to a partnership we have with subs.com. You can check out their subs.com. And like I said, for the price of a cup of coffee, you're able to unlimited private message each and every one of these experts to get the answers that you need. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, please check them out in the show notes, sign up, work with these folks. They are top notch. Thank you so much, my ProVoice team. You did a super job today. Please remember, folks, until next time, if you want to win, you've got to work it daily. But more importantly, if you want to be seen, heard, and in demand, you've got to use your ProVoice.